Hey guys, welcome to another video and thanks for clicking on this one. In this video, I just want to share with you a few updates that I've observed on the Speedbird Pilot Academy program. And I think it is important that I talk about these updates because it could make or break your application. And that's one thing I want to bring to your attention. And that is always stay alert to capture those changes and make necessary adjustments along the way. Most of these changes were made last minute, and if you used the previous preparation material in preparing for this current stage, you will likely miss some of this information that are minor, but they could really change things drastically for you in terms of your application process. So let's get into it without wasting much time. The first thing I want you to notice is in 2024, the prep material that was online up until a week or so prior to the application opening had 2024 at the bottom of the page. The current prep material that is on the website has 2025. Another minor change, the 2024 had the online application stated at the bottom of the page there, and in 2025 it has online application. Just something minor, not a big deal, but something to just mention. The other thing I want to bring to your attention, the online assessment journey. All right. The one to the top left is 2024, the one to the bottom right is 2025. Slight changes that we're going to cover. But for example, the SJT now has a time limit on it. The other thing is for the math test, there's a slight change to the time, and the pilot announcement or passenger announcement, which was stated on the 2024 prep material, is now changed to pilot communication activity. So we're going to cover some of those. And of course, last but not least, which is also very important, is how you progress through the stages. In 2024 and previous applications, you would have to pass each assessment in order to get invited to take the next assessment. So in this case, in 2024, you needed to pass the SGT before you move to the math test. You need to pass the math test to move to the check-in test. For the 2025, you are now invited automatically in a way to the next test up until you get to the check-in test. After that, you would need to have passed everything, all right, all the assessments, SGT, math test, check-in test, in order to get invited to take the pilot communication activity. At least that's what the notes at the bottom states. So those are just some of the minor changes, and I have it in table format here that you would see. So for example, it says the assessments, all right, on the left side of the table. In the middle, we have 2024 and 2025, we have that. And those are the changes. For the SGT, it's now timed 20 questions in 30 minutes. For the math test, it's up to 25 questions in 18 minutes. For the detailed check and test, it's 12 questions in 6 minutes. That didn't change. However, for the math, the time changed. I'm not sure if you can see that. All right, 17 minutes, now it's 18 minutes. Okay. Now, of course, for the communication activity or pilot communication activity, it used to be called passenger announcement, but now it's changed to pilot communication activity. And you would be required to do a briefing to a colleague and make a passenger announcement. I highlighted a briefing to a colleague because that is something that is definitely new, and it require you to take extra steps in preparing, especially if you've applied to this program last year and maybe you didn't get through successfully and you're trying it again. It's very easy to assume that what's most likely going to be similar to what you did last year, but I think this is going to be different. This is just, this is what I think based on the changes that they've made. And I want you to spend some time, or I would recommend, recommend you spend some time looking into how you would brief a colleague about a flight. Now, I don't want to go into details, but there's so many types of briefings you can expect on a particular flight. It could be the crew briefing, it could be the pre-departure briefing, it could be the takeoff briefing, it could be the cruise briefing, it could be the arrival briefing, it could be the debrief or post-flight briefing. And of course, we can go into things like security briefing. We can talk about um, kind of fading here now. Emergency briefing. Okay. So understand that there's so many areas in which you might be required to brief a colleague, and they can pick, I'm guessing, any of these areas. I don't know what you're likely going to get, but it's very important for you to understand what is vital when you're briefing a colleague, especially when it relates to flying. And of course, don't forget to practice your passenger announcement as well. But I don't think I would spend so much time on this particular subject just yet. All right. The next thing is, of course, the note at the bottom. In the previous years, it had you would need to pass each assessment module in order to be invited to the next module. If you pass all these online modules, we will invite you to an in-person flight school. However, it's changed to you will need to pass all test modules collectively in order to be invited to the pilot communication activity. Moving on, the next thing here is for the page that says creating your application. In 2024, it had that green section there. It had at the end of the module, you receive some feedback based on your answers. And it says, we do not measure or assess this. We cannot see your answers. This was specifically underlined with bold and with and I think it is important to just note that it's been taken off from the 2025 application. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean that they can now see or take an intentional look into that application or the answers you give in deciding if you progress? Now, I'm not trying to create any form of speculation in any way, but I'm just trying to bring to you some of the things that I'm noticing. And again, it's really up to you to look into the material because you are the one going through the application. But I'm just bringing what I'm noticing. Okay. The next thing is on the creating your application page in 2024, it had you may also need to record a preference of British Airways base, e.g., LCY, LGW, London Heathrow. And of course, in 2025, that is taken out. I do not know what that means, okay? But I'm just bringing the changes to you, okay? Like I said, I'm not creating any speculations. I'm just bringing the changes to you. In the creating your application in 2024, we had eight, requirements that you had to meet. In 2025, they had a ninth requirement, which is the ability to swim for at least 50 meters and then tread water for 3 minutes and assist other people in the water. Something that is new. If you've applied last year and maybe you cannot swim, well, now that might be a reason why you may be rejected. And this is important. The reason why I'm talking about these changes is because with the way they've changed the process in terms, if you do not pass all the assessments, you don't get invited to the PAC or PCA, the pilot communication activity. That means that if you get rejected, all right, you may not know exactly where things went wrong, unless they provided feedback, of course. But if they don't provide a feedback, then you do not know exactly where you went wrong. Unlike the previous assessments, where let's assume that you made it through SJT and then you didn't get through the math, at least you know that I didn't get through the math. That's why I didn't progress. But for this particular one now, it appears, again, I don't know the details, but it appears that if they don't provide you any feedback, it's going to be difficult for you to reapply the following year, not knowing where you fell short. So something to just keep in mind. And things like this, for example, you might have done well on your math SJT and check-in test, but maybe because you put in there that you can't swim was why you get rejected. But then you might be thinking, oh, maybe it's the math, oh, maybe it's the check-in test, oh, maybe I'd screw up on the SJT. Whereas it was just the fact that you didn't indicate that you could swim. Something to keep in mind, like I said. So let's move on. Creating an application on the step 4 motivation question that you have to answer in 2024, the question states, how are you actively interested in a career in aviation? What have you been doing so far to pursue this? And how has this motivated you to apply to the Speedbird Pilot Academy? In 2025, there's a slight change. What prompted your interest in becoming a pilot? And how have you been actively pursuing this career? How has your journey influenced you to apply to the Speedbird Pilot Academy specifically? Now, it's very important that when you answer this motivation question, you specifically, borrowing their words, you want to make sure you answer those questions directly. Because if you write a very nice essay and you end up not answering those questions specifically, you are likely going to lose points or get rejected. The next thing, in 2024 for the SJT, if you read the instructions properly, it states that you must decide on what action to take in response to different situations. It may not be exactly what you would do, but you must choose the option you believe is most effective for working as a pilot. Now, it's very important that I talk about this. You do not need any technical knowledge to complete the SJT. What might help, however, is to learn about pilot competences. And if you guys remember, pilot competencies is often tested all through this process in some form or the other. In 2025, they've actually removed that section. What you now have is in the SJT, you must decide on what action to take in response to different situations. It may not be exactly what you would do, but you must choose the option you believe is most appropriate for working as a pilot. You will also be required to indicate the option you believe is least appropriate for working as a pilot. So there's definitely a huge difference in those two areas. Okay, this is 2024 again. All right, they specifically mentioned pilot competencies in this section, and in 2025, there was no mention of that. Now, of course, I know that pilot competencies will still be tested. Okay, but I'm just curious why the change. Let's move on. All right, what you have so far for each of the stages, you have stage one, stage two, stage three. What it looks like now is that you have the stage one, the application, the SJT, the math, and the detailed check-in test. Once you pass those, you're going to be invited to the pilot communication activity, which is what I call PCA. Be used to acronyms, all right? You will see a lot of that in aviation. So now, something interesting I want to bring up is that based on what I know, for the stage one, you have 5 attempts at it. So that means if you, for any reason, get rejected in any of this, you have 5 attempts to apply. Once you get to stage two or three, your number of attempts drops to 3 times. Okay, so if for any reason you made it through stage one and now something goes wrong in stage two or stage three, you only have 3 attempts at the entire program. That's what I mean. Okay, at the entire Speedbird Pilot Academy program. So let's come back to this. All right, stage one, you have those. Stage two, you have the Aon test, and then you have the capacity test, the handling test, the group exercise at waterside, and then you have interview. Something different also. All right, capacity test and handling test were things that you did final stage. Okay, but now that is changed. But something also that I want to bring to your attention. In the previous years, you would have to do the tests, especially if you choose FTE, you have to do the test, the written test, where you do some math and all. I'm curious, is that a surprise or is that really the end of the math test that you have to take? I don't know, but something to keep in mind. In previous years, you often have to take those math tests again and take the some of those aptitude tests in person with FTE specifically. But going into 2025 now, maybe that has changed. I don't know, but I'm very specific. Remember, this is just a video. I'm just a guy on YouTube. Do your own research, do your own thorough research. Okay. I would always encourage that. I don't want you to think and take this as gospel. Okay. All right. The next thing is stage three, where you do the speed interview, group exercise, and then something new, competency evaluation exercise. Okay. And of course, reflective interview. You may ask, what is a competency evaluation exercise? There are a lot of things that could be tested during a competency evaluation exercise. And I do not want to speculate on anything. But one thing I want you to keep in mind is that it all comes down to pilot competences and your ability to apply those competences in whatever situation you find yourself. So it could come in a form of scenario, which is mostly the case when it comes to aviation, where you're put in a certain environment. Sometimes you could find yourself in a mock cockpit, okay, or flight deck, or they could set up a scenario for you where you would have to demonstrate some competencies on a given situation or a scenario. But I'm just going to leave that at that for now, okay? So what I just want to cover lastly, the timelines. All right. So for the stage one, application closes on the 21st February, although we will screen applications until mid-March. Okay, that's what they said, or that's what they have on their page. In the stage two, flight school online testing, in-person assessment center, online interview, all those will be done. In the stage two, runs from mid-March until early June. Stage 3, British Airways In-Person Final Assessment Center, scheduled from mid-June until the end of July. All of this is all to give you some information that would help you as you progress through this application. Understand that you do your own due diligence, do your own research, get as much information as you can, and hopefully all that I've shared or through my videos over the years, you find value through them, and you get to achieve success. But one thing is important: this is a long process. Do not burn out. Keep your head up, stay motivated, and continue to work hard.